Let's move on. Let's bring in Newt Gingrich, Fox News contributor, former Speaker of the House, and author of Trump and America's Future. Newt, how are you?
I'm doing great. I must say, you have to wonder how crazy Cuomo is to think that you can rule out all indoor dining in December and January in New York. It'd be one thing if if you were the governor of Florida.
Right.
You'd think the governor of New York would realize it gets really cold and sometimes it gets really snowy.
Yeah.
And his orders make no sense.
Newt, you're mistaking him from someone who cares, someone who actually talks to business people. I was talking to 2 or 3 restaurant owners yesterday, and they said the worst thing is they have no communication. And they walk around with these hired workers, and at the drop of a hat, they'll say, "You're shut down, take your license." And you can be as tough as you want, but when they take that license and shut you down, you are done.
Tell them what Ron DeSantis said down in Florida.
Ron DeSantis, a totally opposite attitude.
I've got your back.
People will never forget that.
That's right. DeSantis actually cares about people. Cuomo actually cares about one person, Cuomo.
All right, let's bring it to what happened yesterday. I know you've seen a lot of fireworks personally, but I thought this exchange was something I don't think I've ever seen before, nor I might not see repeated. Senator Johnson and ranking member Senator Peters from Michigan going at it. Clearly bad blood dating back to the whole Russia hoax. Listen.
I just have to point out that the purveyors of Russian disinformation, Hillary Clinton's campaign, the DNC, the Steele dossier, the ranking member Peters accusing Senator Grassley and I of disseminating Russian disinformation, that's where the disinformation is coming.
Mr. Chairman, I got to respond to that. I mean, you're saying I'm putting out information. Well, one, I had nothing to do with this report.
You lied repeatedly.
I did not.
You lied repeatedly in the press that I was spreading Russian disinformation, and that was an outright lie. And I told you to stop lying, and you continue to do it.
Mr. Chairman, this is not about airing your grievances. I don't know what rabbit hole you're running down.
You talked about Russian disinformation.
Mr. Speaker, put this in perspective. That was real life exchange. This guy has had it. This guy was a plastics executive. He was as mild as it got. After he got to see the underbelly of government, that's what we're left with. Senator Johnson's incensed about what's going on.
Well, look, he should be incensed. I mean, the American people are watching their country being stolen away from them. They're watching the Chinese become dominant. They're watching a level of penetration that's unimaginable. They're watching Pelosi put Swalwell on the Intelligence Committee after she'd been told by the FBI that he'd been hanging out with a woman who was a Chinese professional spy. They're watching the Democrats lie about virtually everything. You know, people say, oh, we should now make nice. We've spent 4 years with people like Peters lying about us, attacking us, trying to impeach the president. We've had the FBI commit crimes to try to destroy General Flynn. And you look at all this stuff, and we're still dealing with it now in the election. And what you have is a total censorship by the media and the internet companies to block the American people. And I think for guys like Ron Johnson, who, as you point out, Ron is a manufacturer. He ran to solve problems. He ran to create jobs. And I think he is totally frustrated by the depth of hypocrisy and dishonesty that is unfortunately now the routine in the power structure in this country.
Well, as it turns out, the Hunter Biden story before the election was not Russian disinformation. There actually is now, Hunter has admitted, a criminal investigation into his taxes. Nonetheless, Newt, before the election, nobody was talking about the Hunter Biden story except the New York Post and this channel right here. And ever since the election, one channel, Fox News, has been the only one who's gone out to his events and asked Joe Biden questions about Hunter. I have a vested interest because the reporter used to be a dependent of mine back in the olden days. Here he is yesterday at the Pete Buttigieg event, where he asked the former vice president, president-elect, about his son, Hunter Biden. Watch.
Are you confident your son Hunter did nothing wrong?
I'm confident.
Okay, so he thinks he's confident that nothing happened. On the cover of the New York Post today, the headline is "Hide and Reek," because it's a Rasmussen Report survey on Hunter Biden. Listen to this. 52% of American voters think that the media ignored the Hunter Biden story to help his father's campaign. That's what you were talking about. But look at 78% of Republicans think the media deliberately hid the story until after the election. 73% of Republicans think Biden profited from Hunter Biden's dealings, and 56% of all voters think likely that Joe Biden was consulted and profited from his son's business dealings. So what do you think about where we are right now with Hunter and his dad?
Look, I think we are in one of the most dangerous periods in American history. You have a president-elect who can't even tell the truth about his relationship with the Chinese. There's a story today that he may appoint one of the two major movie executives who have been kowtowing to the Chinese for a decade to be the ambassador to Beijing.
Bob Iger.
You have a situation where, as I just printed in my newsletter at Gingrich 360, a speech by a Chinese professor who says openly in a class in Shanghai, we have friends in high places. Now that Trump is gone, everything will be great again, and we'll be back to working with Wall Street, basically to rip off America. And I think that people need to realize how really deeply serious this whole problem is. And I think it's a tragedy. It's ironic that the Washington Post has this democracy dies in darkness when they are among the chief creators of the darkness. None of those newspapers, none of the media except Fox, had the guts to stand up for the New York Post, the oldest newspaper in the country, the fourth biggest, when it reported accurately what was going on with Hunter Biden. And Americans, all Americans, ought to be enraged. They're watching their country be taken away from them by huge interest groups who are clearly more comfortable with the Chinese dictatorship than they are with the U.S. And you see that if you look at Amazon, which now, not Amazon, if you look at Apple, which now has a rule at Apple that you should say nothing negative about China. I mean, this is really a dangerous thing in terms of
that's where they
the
make their
future of the United
products.
States. It's not just about domestic politics. It's about the very survival of America as an independent system.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that they don't see that. I can't believe they don't. All right, let's talk about AOC, because she was on a podcast. She was being interviewed about leadership in the House. And as the former Speaker of the House, we wanted to ask you about it because she thinks Nancy Pelosi needs to go. Listen to this.
I do think that we need new leadership in the Democratic Party. I think it's easy for someone to say, oh, well, why don't you run? But the House is extraordinarily complex, and I'm not ready. It can't be me. I know that I couldn't do that job.
Are you ready to say Pelosi and Schumer need to go?
I mean, I think so. We need to shift power. We need to make sure that we have a transition of power in the leadership of the Democratic Party.
Newt, do you think it's time for those two to go?
Look, well, of course, but I'm a Republican partisan. I tweeted yesterday that if AOC is serious, all she and the gang have to do is refuse to vote for Pelosi. Pelosi doesn't have the votes to become Speaker because Kevin McCarthy did such a great job. The House Republicans gained so many seats that she literally has too narrow a margin. This is why she can't take Swalwell off the Intelligence Committee.
Right.
She needs his vote. And if AOC and the gang said, we will not vote for Pelosi, she would have to step down and they'd have to look for somebody else. But I think this is a case of, put up or shut up. And we're going to find out there's an old rule, no guts, no glory. And I think AOC talks a lot. She has a chance right now to actually do something. And my guess is that she'll cave and she'll be just like everybody that she attacks. And she'll be just another compromiser.
Well, listen, they're not going to have a rubber stamp. There's a lot of people in the House, and you know this, are not happy with Nancy Pelosi. There was an uprising when it came to the stimulus package in the summer among Democrats, so-called moderate Democrats, and she's got about a 9-seat advantage, tops, judging by how a couple of these elections turn out. Newt, great job. And we all hear the 4 or 5 alarm fire when it comes to China, and we're not going to get our foot off the gas on that. Appreciate it.
Great. Take care.